Pervis Ellison was extremely solid coming out of Louisville. He was 6'9" with good post moves, a nice outside shot, and a tenacity on the boards. He was a great finisher at the rim, and he also protected well on the other end. After he led the Cardinals to a national title as a freshman, he could have left for the NBA, but he chose to stay all 4 years. After our All-American senior season, he went first overall in 1989 to the Sacramento Kings, who never brought him in for any interviews or workouts before the draft. Pervis didn't start his career well, as he was already hurt and holding out for more money. A foot injury cost him half of his rookie year, but he was traded to the Bullets in the offseason, as it was shocking for a franchise to give up on a #1 pick so quickly. Pervis reached his peak in 1991, as he averaged all-star numbers, but Washington was bad, so he became the most improved player instead. But after this season, knee issues and a broken toe sustained while moving furniture would keep him in street clothes often, as he wouldn't play more than 69 games in the season for the rest of his career. It's also widely known that Pervis didn't have the passion for the game you wanted in a top pick. Although he's considered one of the biggest busts of all time, his story deserves a deeper dive in order to really understand why his career went the way it did. Today's episode will look at the journey of never nervous Pervis Ellison. Welcome to PG Hoops, and let's get down to it. Pervis was born on April 3rd, 1967 in Savannah, Georgia. When he got to Savannah High School, he was 6'9" and dominating the competition, becoming a McDonald's All-American. Louisville assistant Wade Houston saw Pervis play at the 1984 BC All-Stars camp, and he knew he needed to get him. Pervis accepted his offer, and now the Cardinals had their big man of the future. Louisville already had two great players in Billy Thompson and Milt Wagner, but Pervis had no problems adjusting to the college game. He was effective in all areas of the game, as he was top 15 in the conference in all 5 major statistical categories. The Cardinals started 11-6, but they came alive in the second half of the year, finishing 24-7. They beat Cincinnati and Memphis to win the Metro Championship. Pervis' solid freshman year saw him average 13 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 1.5 steals, and 2.5 blocks. Louisville was a 2 seed, so they faced Drexel in the first tournament game. Pervis dropped a solid 11 points, 9 rebounds, and 2 blocks, but Billy Thompson carried Louisville to a blowout win. Pervis dropped 16 points and 8 rebounds on 7 of 10 shooting in an easy win over Bradley. The regional semifinal against North Carolina was another easy win for Louisville, as Pervis had his hands all over this game, with 15 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, and 3 blocks. He dropped 15 points, 10 rebounds, 3 steals, and 2 blocks in the regional final win over Auburn. The Cardinals beat LSU in the Final Four, as Pervis put up 11 points, 13 rebounds, and a block. Louisville faced Duke in the national title game, as this was the Blue Devils' first appearance with Coach K at the helm. The Cardinals were down 3 at the half, but they would come back and win by 3, capturing their second national championship. Pervis showed out with 25 points, 11 rebounds, and 2 blocks on 10 of 14 shooting, earning the nickname Never Nervous due to his calm demeanor in high-pressure situations. After being the first freshman since 1944 to win the Final Four's most outstanding player, Pervis was on NBA radars, but he decided to stay in school. The Cardinals fell off hard in Pervis' senior year. Their offense plummeted from 15th to 138th, starting the season with 3 straight losses to Northeastern, Washington, and Texas. They didn't get over 500 until January, finishing with a 16-13 record before being blown out by Memphis in the conference tournament. Even with more shots, Pervis didn't improve that much from his freshman year, but he still played well, averaging 15 points, 8.5 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, and 2.5 blocks. Louisville would have an easier time in the Metro in 1987, as Memphis' 2 top players, Marvin Alexander and Sylvester Gray, were suspended for the entire year for contacting a sports agent. The Cardinals had a much improved season, finishing 20-10. After beating South Carolina and Memphis, they won the conference and were back in the tournament. Pervis won the Conference Player of the Year as a junior, averaging 18 points, 8.5 rebounds, 3 assists, 1.5 steals, and 3 blocks. In the first tournament game against Oregon State, he dropped 23 points, 11 rebounds, and 4 assists on a 9-point win. He put up 24 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 blocks in the win against BYU. Louisville's season would end in the regional semifinal against Oklahoma, but Pervis dropped 23 points, 14 rebounds, and 4 blocks. He would play for Team USA in the Pan American Games during the summer, taking home a silver medal. Pervis would still be with Louisville as a senior, and after losing their first 2 games to Xavier and Vanderbilt, Louisville would win 14 straight. After this, they would limp through the second half of the year to finish 20-8. The Cardinals got narrow wins over Memphis and Florida State to win the Metro again. Pervis had very similar stats compared to his junior year, but he led the conference in blocks and true shooting percentage, being named a first-team All-American, with averages of 18 points, 8.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 1.5 steals, and 3 blocks. Pervis struggled in the first round matchup against Little Rock with 8 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 blocks on 3 of 8 shooting, but Louisville got the close win. He really bounced back against Arkansas with 21 points, 15 rebounds, 8 assists, and 3 blocks in the winning effort. He continued this against Illinois with 12 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, and 7 blocks, but Louisville's season would end here. Pervis was still one of the best draft prospects, but scouts had some questions about his overall upside, as he could never replicate the success of his freshman year. They were also concerned about his slight frame and his lack of assertiveness, as he didn't have that killer instinct that most teams look for in a franchise player. However, Bill Russell, the executive of the Kings at the time, was enamored with Pervis, as he somehow felt that he resembled himself on the court. The unusual part about this was that he didn't bring Pervis in for any interviews or workouts before the draft. Even when other management personnel suggested he should talk to Pervis and get to know him, Bill was adamant on his stance. It also didn't help that the 1989 draft didn't have a clear-cut number 1. The 30-minute phone call before selecting him first overall was the first time the Kings had contacted him during the draft process. You can clearly see his reaction to getting drafted.
With that first pick in the 1989 NBA draft, the Sacramento Kings select Pervis Ellison from the University of Louisville.
Pervis already started off his NBA career on the wrong foot, no pun intended, as right before camp, he had surgery to remove bone spurs in his right foot and ankle. He missed camp to heal and also held out for more money. Pervis wouldn't make his NBA debut until November 14th, dropping 6 points and 2 rebounds in 13 minutes off the bench. He shot poorly over the next few games before going down again. He changed his running gait to compensate for a surgically repaired foot, and now he had developed tendonitis in his big toe. Also, Bill had approved a holiday break request from Pervis to visit family for Christmas, but he was away from the team for 2 weeks. Bill was fired days later. Pervis came back at the end of February, scoring 1 point but grabbing 9 rebounds and blocking 5 shots in his return. His teammate Danny Ainge would call him out of service Pervis, and the name stuck, but it was obvious that he and the Kings as a whole were struggling this year as they finished 23-59. In his 34 games this season, Pervis averaged 8 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 blocks. But after only 1 season, the Kings wanted to cut their losses, as the later first-round picks were producing at a higher level, so Pervis was part of a 3-team trade that saw him end up on the Bullets, as it was unheard of for a team to trade their top pick so soon. It was made even worse by the fact that none of the draft picks that the Kings acquired panned out in the league. Washington was coached by team legend Wes Unseld, as the offense ran through Bernard King. Pervis played 76 games this year, but he split center minutes with Charles Jones. He struggled with his efficiency early on, but he would eventually find his rhythm, especially once he entered the starting lineup. His best performance of the year would be on April 5th against Indiana with 30 points and 12 rebounds on 14 of 16 shooting. He would even drop 27 points, 15 rebounds, and 4 blocks in the season finale against Milwaukee. Pervis would finish in the top 20 for offensive rebounds and the top 10 in blocks, but with Bernard jacking up the most shots in the league, the Bullets' offense was extremely inefficient as he finished 30-52. Pervis finally had a full season to prove what he could do in the league, and he wasn't bad, averaging 10 points, 7.5 rebounds, and 2 blocks. Bernard would miss the entire 1992 season with a knee injury, and the Bullets acquired a new point guard from Denver in Michael Adams. Coach Unseld would order him to consistently feed Pervis the ball, and he would have the best season of his career, as he was finally a full-time starter. He was playing like an all-star in the beginning of the season, dropping 30 points, 18 rebounds, and 4 blocks on November 25th, then dropping 16 points, 13 rebounds, and 7 blocks 2 games later. Pervis had 45 double-doubles this year, grabbing at least 15 boards in 12 games, and blocking at least 5 shots in 9 games. He was 18th in rebounds, 8th in blocks, and 12th in field goal percentage. Pervis was catching the attention of the fans with his play, as he actually finished 3rd in All-Star votes among centers in the East. Michael Adams and Harvey Grant both put up over 18 points a game, but the Bullets just didn't have enough talent to be competitive, as he finished 25-57. Pervis's breakout season earned him some hardware, as he took home the Most Improved Player award, averaging 20 points, 11 rebounds, 3 assists, and 3 blocks. The Bullets drafted Tom Gugliotta and Don McLean in 1992, as Pervis looked to build on last year. He started out pretty well, dropping 14 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 blocks in the season opener. While his numbers dropped a bit, it wasn't too concerning, as he was still blocking shots and his efficiency was still the same. But on February 26, Pervis would deal with knee problems, as he would be sidelined for the rest of the season. Pervis averaged 17 points, 9 rebounds, 2.5 assists, and 2 blocks. Washington drafted Calvert Chaney in 1993, and they gave Pervis some competition by trading for Kevin Duckworth and signing 7'7" George Marasan out of Romania. Pervis was still recovering from knee issues, so he wouldn't start the season until December. He was coming off the bench, but he would have some good performances, dropping 21 points on 10 of 11 shooting on December 30th against the Knicks, and 25 points, 12 rebounds, and 3 assists on 8 of 10 shooting on March 1st against Philly. Pervis only played half the season, but he led the team in blocks, as the Bullets' defense was atrocious. Other than the breakout season from new most improved player Don McLean, there wasn't much to be excited about in Washington, as he finished 24-58. Pervis averaged 7 points, 5 rebounds, 1.5 assists, and a block. Pervis was released by the Bullets in the offseason, and he was signed with the Celtics, who were going through a rare rebuilding phase, but fans were optimistic as they also signed Dominique Wilkins. With Eric Montross and Dino Radja playing most of the front court minutes, Pervis would come off the bench, as he wouldn't return until December, as he had visibly put on some weight. He could still hoop though, dropping 19 points, 10 rebounds, and 2 steals in the Celtics debut. On January 7th, he dropped 20 points and 12 rebounds on 9 of 15 shooting against Charlotte. He dropped 6 double-doubles this year, while he was contributing on defense, recording 4 games with at least 3 blocks. The Celtics were far removed from their dominance of the 80s, but they were a well-balanced team. Their 35-47 record was still enough for a first-round matchup against Shaq and the Orlando Magic. Pervis averaged 7 points, 5.5 rebounds, and a block. The Celtics lost by 47 points in Game 1, but Pervis dropped 10 points and 2 blocks on 5 of 8 shooting in the Game 2 win. He had the best playoff game of his career in Game 3, with 8 points, 10 rebounds, and 3 blocks, but the Celtics lost. Pervis barely saw the floor in Game 4, as the Magic handled business and eliminated Boston. Team president M.L. Carr took over as the head coach in 1995, but the Celtics' biggest acquisition was trading for Dana Barros. Pervis was still the backup center, but he was way down in the rotation. On January 31st against the Grizzlies, he dropped 11 points, 12 rebounds, and 4 blocks. A month later against Charlotte, he dropped 8 points, 20 rebounds, 5 assists, and 6 blocks. He dropped 4 double-doubles and blocked 5 shots in 3 games, as he actually led the team in blocks again. The Celtics as a team were still trying to figure things out, so they finished 33-49, missing the playoffs. Pervis averaged 5 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 1.5 blocks. The Celtics would enter the Rick Pitino era in 1996, but Pervis would barely be a part of it. While moving furniture at his house, he dropped a table on his foot and broke his toe, as he would only play in 39 games over the next 3 years, missing the entire 1998 season with a broken ankle. When he returned in 1999, the team looked a lot different. Antoine Walker, Paul Pierce, and Kenny Anderson were the main contributors, but they were still trying to find their footing as a team. Pervis was only getting about 9 minutes a game, as his best performance was a 3-point, 8 rebound, and 3 assist performance on November 27th against Atlanta. The Celtics were a good offensive team, but they couldn't stop anybody, so the 35-47 record wasn't good enough for the playoffs. Pervis averaged 2 points and 2 rebounds this season. After only playing in 69 of a possible 246 games over his final 3 seasons in Boston, he was now a free agent. He signed with the Sonics in 2000 at center depth, but Pervis was stuck behind a 38-year-old Patrick Ewing and Jelani McCoy in the rotation, as he was an afterthought, only getting about 4 minutes a game as he put up minimal stats before being released on December 18th. In his last season, Pervis averaged 1 point and 1.5 rebounds. Pervis will retire at 33 years old. He currently coaches basketball at Life Center Academy in New Jersey. His son Malik plays pro basketball overseas, while his daughter Asia played at Maryland and Texas A&M. Pervis' career was a far cry from what was expected of him, so most would call him one of the worst draft picks in NBA history. As then Kings executive Jerry Reynolds said, "We found out, along with other teams that had Pervis, that he didn't love the game. Good guy, easy to be around, but he didn't have that competitive spirit, that drive, and that's why he had the career he had. We were not lucky in a bad draft. We needed a great player, but there wasn't a David Robinson, a Tim Duncan, a Kareem, a LeBron, not even close. I never got blamed by the fans for the Pervis pick because it wasn't my call, but fans did question it for years. They had every right to. The pick was a mistake." Of course, injuries and a lack of passion played a big part in Pervis' career going the way it did, but we can't just gloss over the fact that he was picked by an organization that never even contacted him. He was essentially drafted on a hunch by Bill Russell, as they really didn't do their homework on him before they picked him. No interviews, no workouts, nothing. Just a hunch. Him being injured was a perfect excuse the Kings needed to trade him, and the fact that he was dealt a year after he was drafted cast a shadow over him, in addition to the injury-prone label he was already getting. He probably would have benefited more from declaring for the draft after his freshman year, as he might have gone to a better situation. But when Pervis was healthy and motivated, he was an extremely solid player, as evidenced by his breakout campaign. He could shoot, run the floor, pass, rebound, and defend. But unfortunately, he was never healthy enough to show all of his skills. Man, thank you guys. I really appreciate y'all. I had always heard of Pervis Ellison because it was just like a random name that always came up in NBA discussions. It's like, who's one of the worst #1 picks of all time? Everyone goes like, oh, Pervis Ellison. But then you look at his career. This guy was good. He couldn't stay healthy. And then, of course, the lack of motivation for the game, which probably got even worse as he kept rehabbing from injuries, because it's like you get hurt and now you got to do a year's worth of rehab. And then you got to come back and you get hurt again, and you come back and get hurt again. Like, your motivation for the game would dip after that, I would assume. As the Kings, why would you draft a guy that you haven't talked to? Why would you draft a guy you haven't done any interviews with? You don't even know him, but yet you're going to draft him anyway. Just because you were a great player doesn't mean you could be a great coach or a great executive. Bill Russell might be the biggest example of that. Dude was a legend as a player, but as a coach, Bill Russell as a coach was, just like Seattle, as soon as he stepped down from Seattle, they went to the finals the next year, and then they won the championship the year after that. And then in Sacramento, he just basically ruins the Kings, if we're being honest. I know that draft didn't have a clear-cut #1, but they would have been way better with somebody like Glenn Rice, somebody like a Sean Kemp, somebody like a Tim Hardaway, or a Sean Elliott. I mean, obviously, he didn't play to his potential because he couldn't stay on the court. I mean, that's the biggest thing. But I mean, when you get drafted to an organization that doesn't really do their homework on you and that trades you the first chance they get, that already casts a bad light on you now because you're already labeled as injury prone. I ain't gonna lie, I didn't know how good he was when he was healthy, but he's nice when he was healthy. He's definitely like an all-around guy, like a stat sheet stuffer that can do everything. He can pass, he can handle the ball a little bit, he can play defense, he can score, he can rebound. He was a great all-around player, but he didn't really have that instinct, that really killer mentality. And also, he just had a lot of horrible injury luck, if we're being honest. At least his kids are doing well in basketball. At least he's satisfied doing what he's doing. So that's really all you can ask for, because he still played in the NBA. He still made a good amount of money. His family's still good for life. So, I mean, you can't really ask for much else. Thank you. Please be safe. Have a great day. Stay on the grind. I'm out. Peace.